It's the Drive, Hour 2 on TSN 1200. Rod Black's going to join us in a few minutes, in about 15 minutes, to talk Women's Worlds and a little more CFL as well. But first, here's what you need to know today. Week 3 in the CFL begins tonight in Vancouver. Edmonton Elks take on the BC Lions. The Elks 0-2 and facing all sorts of heat with Trevor Harris leading the team with the best net offense in the league, but the worst point total. While the BC Lions 1-1 and expected to go with Mike O'Reilly at quarterback, but it could be Nathan Rourke. That one, 10 o'clock tonight on TSN. Jake Maier will start at quarterback ahead of Michael O'Connor, the Ottawa native, when Calgary faces Montreal tomorrow. Bo Levi Mitchell on the 6-game injured list with a broken leg. Meantime, the Red Blacks play in Regina Saturday against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That'll be a 5 o'clock pregame and 7 o'clock start on TSN 1200. Buffalo Sabres #1 pick Owen Power is heading back to the University of Michigan next season. And the Blue Jays continue a series in Washington tonight against the Nationals. And that is what you need to know today. Graham Creech. Should mention congratulations to Nick Blanchard. Woo! Nick, you're off to see Atletico Ottawa on August 29th against Halifax. We'll have one more 4-pack to give away between now and the end of the show. Also, it's a Takeout Thursday. And we're going to have to basically determine caller 15 at some point later in the show. And Graham will go with, I think we'll go with my second favorite pizza. I've got a lot of different favorite types of pizzas. But what you'll need to know, and I'll bring this up a couple more times before we hit the sounder, but my second favorite pizza is ham and pineapple. You know what? I love me some spicy chicken, but I'm not going to get into the spicy chicken right now. Creature, it's all about the ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple is your number 2 pizza?
Yeah, from Gabriel's, yeah.
What's your number 1? Is
little spicy chicken.
Spicy chicken?
Yeah, but it's, I don't want to confuse people, so let's just go ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple.
That's my number 2. They're both fantastic from Gabriel's. So when I'm not feeling like spicy chicken, what do I have? Well, that's what you'll need to know when you hear the sounder, and you'll have to be caller 15 sometime between now and 6 o'clock. Ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple.
Stuntman Stu's favorite.
Yeah. Stu needs to test out some more foods.
Well,
pineapple's fine. I'm not a huge fan of ham on pizza. Not a huge ham guy anyways.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. Like, I still don't understand, like, it's probably the power rankings guys, so, like, it's probably Stuntman Stu doing the power rankings. The same people complaining about pineapple on pizza. Like, look, I don't like olives on a pizza. I don't like onions on a pizza. I don't like anchovies on a pizza. But I don't go around telling people that olives and anchovies and onions shouldn't be on a pizza. I just don't order it.
Yes.
Like, that's
you don't bring it up
thing.
every day.
Classic old tune.
Sorry, I walked all over that. I didn't know it was coming.
Classic old tune. But it's not just Stu. It's that genre of person. Like, okay, you don't like pineapple on a pizza. Stop saying it doesn't belong.
You just don't like it.
Exactly. I'm not going to tell you what to like or what not to like.
Did you see his tattoo?
I did. Good for him. Good for him. I mean, what's wrong with pineapple? It's refreshing. When I think of pineapple, I think of pina coladas. Great drink. Fired up for some. I haven't had a pina colada in like, I don't know, a couple of years at least. Got to get going on that. They make really good ones at the Keg, and I haven't been there in a couple of years.
I can't say I've ever ordered a pina colada anywhere other than down south.
Okay. Well, they make good ones at the Keg. So now that that's out of the way, lots to give away between now and the end of the show.
Ham and pineapple.
Ham and pineapple. That's what you need to know. Owen Power's going back to the University of Michigan. My goodness, they're going to have a good team next year. Now, you see what can happen in the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, North Dakota had a dominant team. And now part of what hurt them in that multiple overtime game was the fact that their opposition had not played the day before because of a COVID forfeit.
With Michigan, yeah.
Yeah. But you look at what they should return next year.
Plus adding Hughes.
Yeah. That's going to be kind of like North Dakota was must-see TV for Ottawa Senators fans over the course of this past season with Shane Pinto and Jake Sanderson, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Tyler Clevin. I just think for hockey fans in general, they'll be wanting to watch that Michigan team with 4 of the top 5 picks.
What a program.
Yeah, well, it's kind of bringing back memories of the old, like it's been I don't want to say dormant. They've had some decent teams, but in the 90s, teams like when they had David Oliver and Brendan Morrison, like they had some really good teams in the 90s. They were the class of college hockey. And now, like, there's so many good programs, but with the amount of star-studded NHL talent that is going through Ann Arbor next year, my goodness, they should be a lot of fun to watch. You watch much Michigan hockey? Or you just kind of mainly football and a little bit of basketball?
I don't claim to follow or root for anyone else, so I follow them a little bit. I'm not going to pretend that I watch 24 games or whatever. But I definitely pay attention, and if there's nothing going on and I can find a game, I'll do that. And my plan next fall is to go to Michigan hockey and a Michigan football game in the same weekend.
Yost Ice Arena.
Yeah, I haven't been there, and I really want to.
I've seen a game there, but it was not Michigan hockey. It was actually Sean Day. And it was the year that the Ottawa 67s had the number 1 pick. And I remember sitting at a table with Pat Higgins and Chris Byrne. We were in London, kind of picking their brains about Sean Day. And because at that point, it was basically thought of as a given that, okay, Sean Day is a special player and special talent, and Sean Day was going to be given exceptional circumstances to join the league a year early, and every player that had received that special dispensation had gone on to be the number 1 pick. So, I mean, I'd never seen Sean Day play or any of the other top projected players. And, there was talk at that table that they might not go with Sean Day. And I'm like, really? Thought that was a slam dunk. I thought this was going to be the next, this was pre-McDavid, obviously, but the next John Tavares, or, of course, he also had Aaron Ekblad that was given that special status as well. And everyone just kind of assumed that, okay, well, this guy, he's going to be the next one, right? How do you pass on a guy like that? So I ended up going the next day to Ann Arbor to watch Sean Day play, and he wasn't very good. And it wasn't just the fact that he wasn't good. He just didn't seem to care. Like, bad body language, and just did not try at all. Like, you saw his skating ability was kind of Paul Coffey-esque. And you think, okay, well, the skating's fantastic, but he just did not seem to care. And at that point, I understood, okay, I get what you're doing here. And I ended up taking Travis Konecny, and I think it ended up being the best thing for the franchise because Konecny played 2.5 years for the 67s, but they traded him for basically a boatload to Sarnia and set up their team really, really nicely for, the runs that they had in 2019 and what could have been a fantastic run in 2020 and even 2021. So, yeah, just kind of an interesting trip to Ann Arbor to the Yost Ice Arena, and you think back of Sean Day, obviously, Kenny, I can look at Hockey DB, but what's become of Sean Day off the top of your head?
Lamenting away in the AHL.
Didn't he just resign? Is he still in Tampa's system? I think he signed with somebody this offseason. I don't know if it's Tampa.
I haven't seen his name this offseason. I remember last offseason he did.
So he spent basically his first 2 years pro, split between the AHL and East Coast League. He spent 62 games in the AHL and 55 in the East Coast. He was a third-round pick of the New York Rangers, and last year he spent with Syracuse. Good numbers for a defenseman, 15 points in 29 games. Boy, if he can figure it out, right? The tools are there.
Yeah, he did just re-sign with Tampa. 1 year, $750.
Okay. So, but just interesting to look back. That's it's really the only player given exceptional status that hasn't gone number one in their respective leagues, OHL, WHL, or QMJHL. And in the end, I think the Ottawa 67's got it right. Hard to argue with what Travis Konecny brought to the 67s, and now having a pretty good year, a pretty good career with the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, take a break. When we come back, Rod Black's going to join us from TSN, talk a little Women's Worlds and CFL, as well as we continue with the drive on TSN 1200. It's the drive on TSN 1200. AJ Jakubek, Graham Creech, Kenny Walls. Let's bring in our next guest on the Gabriel Pizza Hotline from TSN. He's in Calgary right now for the Women's World Hockey Championship. The one and only Rod Black. How you doing today, Rod?
Hello, boys. How's things?
Outstanding. How about you? How's life in Calgary?
Well, Calgary is one of my favorite cities. Close to Ottawa, not quite on the list. I love Ottawa so much. Although I will tell you, it's very different when you come here. Beautiful summer day. We've kind of got a day off today because we start tomorrow. We had prelims yesterday. Canada beat Finland and the United States beat Russia and all of that, and everybody's getting ready. And it's a beautiful day. You'd like to, go to practice, do your notes, maybe get a golf game in, take a walk, go for dinner. But unfortunately, we are in the bubble.
Yes.
So I'm getting to know this hotel room intimately, if you can, and the hockey rink. So it's a hotel, bus, or shuttle, and hockey rink for the next 2 weeks. But I will tell you guys, I am overjoyed to have to do that because it's still better than what we had before, which was nothing.
So how many bubbles for you now? I've had two. They were both soccer bubbles. One was in Charlottetown, PEI for 7 weeks. And
wow.
Loved that
I don't
one.
feel so bad, no.
I actually enjoyed that one because we had a lot of deck space. You could look out on the water. Now, I wanted to be on the other side of the fence. But at least, we had some outdoor space. And then I did 2 weeks in Winnipeg for a soccer bubble. That one, it was I never spent so much time in my hotel room in my life.
Yeah, I know. You really get, you get a lot of work done. You make a lot of calls. You talk to people you really wouldn't talk to normally. Like you. No, just kidding. And you watch, a little more Netflix than you probably would watch. And HBO probably that you wouldn't watch. But no, this is my first. I thought we'd have a CFL bubble, AJ, last year. I really think that, looking back on it, we probably should have. But no, this is my first. And, the testing is what's very unique. You get tested. We had a test before we leave. Did that. Test when you got here. Did that. Everybody's masked up. The reason is we're all in the bubble and there's so many international players in the hotel. And it is tight. With the crew, everybody, there have been no positive tests so far. We get tested regularly, as do the players. The sad news is there won't be any fans in the stands during the preliminary round games. They're thinking about adding, and I'm hoping they will, fingers crossed, because it would make it so much better for the medal round games, I guess another 10 days or so. But, I will tell you, we all know this is a different world we're living in now, and it sounds a little trite, I suppose, because we're talking about sports and there's so many other things and, that other situations in the world that we could, probably be having a stronger conversations about. But at the same time, I do think we need sports as a distraction and a diversion.
Do you know? Just speaking of the bubble, because this Canadian women's team will remain there to prepare for Beijing. Do you know if they're going to remain in the bubble the entire time, or do you know anything about that situation?
I would say it'll be a bit of a looser bubble, but I would probably think that it's going to be strengthened as they get closer to Beijing. It's a unique time, you guys. I mean, it's set, again, beyond the fact we're having a Women's World Hockey Championship in August, which was supposed to be in May, which was supposed to be last May. The fact that we're having it, and we're about 5 months away from another Olympic Games, is bizarre. And so it's like this is a precursor to the Olympics. They've added players, they've centralized. Could they make any more possible changes leading up to the Olympics based on what happens at the Worlds? I still think that's kind of up in the air depending on what happens here. But I would say they're probably going to have to, it won't be as strong as a bubble, I don't think, as it is right now with so many international teams, because they will be by themselves. But at the same time, I don't think they can risk anything. I do think the words "proceed with caution" is kind of the mantra right now for all of us. Even if you're vaccinated, even if you're vaccinated, I can tell you, I'm double vaccinated. I was double vaccinated long ago, and I got the variant. I had the variant, a few months ago. So it can happen to anybody, and I had no idea. But you have to keep testing and testing and testing, and so it's just a strange world. You never know. Ask Dom Ducharme, ask John Rahm. Although Rahm, finally, I guess, came to his senses and is getting vaccinated. But I will tell you that every time I get tested, based on the fact that it could have been a false positive or whatever, you realize that, that there might be a positive test, because I really believe this thing is still so mysterious.
859 days since the last Women's World Championship concluded. How much excitement? Or can you feel
That's
it?
859 bottles of wine. If you go for a bottle of wine each day, that's for some of us. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
That's a lot of wine. I think there's probably that much in my parents' garage right now. Yeah. But 859 days. I mean, there must be amongst the players just so much excitement just to be back at it, and especially when you're basically 6 months out from the Olympic Games in Beijing.
Yeah, and I'd like to tell you, AJ, that, I sense that. I do sense that just watching the practice. And normally we're really close when, we can talk to them after and we have conversations and, we sit down with them, or we see them in the hotel, or we see them on the way to the rink, or we see them outside of our truck, warming up. And you get a chance to converse with all of these great athletes. But the only palpable emotion you get is when you're watching it either on TV or, you're watching it from afar. But I can tell you, just based on, some of the interviews we heard yesterday, the joy, the pictures that we showed on TSN of these players, Marie-Philippe Poulin, I could see the emotion for her, especially after, she was injured, only played, less than 5 minutes at the last World Championship. The fact that Canada only had a bronze medal, and that's nothing to sneeze at, but at the same time, Canada's not used to taking a bronze, but that's a long time. It's a long time away. And I really feel sorry for these athletes, because it's kind of like, the CFL, yes, shut down last year, but every other league, every other sport, the players, they shut down for a while and they were back up and running. Women's hockey did not. And they were in the middle of, losing so much momentum because they didn't have a professional league. They didn't have places to play. And for a lot of hockey players, rinks were shut down in Canada. So you train indoors. And I'm sure that was the case around the world. So you see the joy in their eyes and the smiles on the bench. Then you also see how hard they played. I don't know if you saw last night's game, but man, that was a preliminary. That's supposed to be a tune-up, like an exhibition. I hate using that word, exhibition. Man, that looked like a playoff game, the way that both teams went so hard at it. So I think everybody's just happy to get back.
You brought up Marie-Philippe Poulin. How is she doing health-wise? Like, what are the expectations for her? And also, just if you could offer a comment on where you think she ranks right now among the all-time greats.
No, I think I'll start with the last one. I think she is one of the greatest Canadian players ever. I mean, my personal list, I definitely have to put Hayley Wickenheiser up there. Cami Granato, certainly one of the greatest, all the Hall of Famers that have played before. I put Marie-Philippe Poulin as one of the greats as well, and she's won two. She's the greatest goal scorer in Olympic history for clutch goals. She has become a superstar, a household name. You watch little girls and little boys. If you go to the arenas, that number 29 is a huge number. Everybody has that number. She is a great athlete, a great player, a greater person. And I rank her right up there. And, if there was a Mount Rushmore, I guess, of Canadian women's hockey, I put Marie-Philippe Poulin on there for what she's done. Now, keep in mind, she hasn't won as many worlds as everybody would like or think, because Canada hasn't the last few years. And I think she really has it in her mind to try to erase what happened in Finland to her. She is also the bionic woman. I got to tell you, I've never seen somebody, and this tells you how hard and fierce she is on the ice. I mean, she comes off this devastating knee injury from 2 years ago. She had a ruptured spleen. You go wrist, and every time it seemed something was wrong, and they did. She rebuilt herself. She looks good. Just watching her edges, her shot has never left her. She looks fresh, and she's older. She's going to be 30 years old, which is, in many in many sports and in many leagues, you start thinking that that you're starting the sun is starting to fade, but I don't see it in her. And what she's loving more, guys, is she's really become that real leader for those young players. The next crop of Marie-Philippe Poulins and Haley Wickenheisers out there. So she looks good. And I will tell you this, I can tell you right now, had she been healthy when we were in Finland in 2019, Finland, I do not believe would have been in that gold medal game. I just don't see it, because when you miss your leader, when you miss one of the best players in the world, you miss a lot.
Rod Black joining us from TSN, live from the bubble in Calgary, getting set for the Women's World Championship, which...
That sounds like a game show.
Yeah.
Live from the bubble.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we have some good game show stories from Winnipeg and PEI for sure. Just your thoughts on this Canada team, because you mentioned it a little bit. They haven't won a major competition since 2014 when they won gold in Sochi, and that includes 4 consecutive world championships that the U.S. has won, and of course, gold in Korea in 2018. So how much have they been able to close the gap, I guess, between themselves and the United States? We're going to find out shortly, but a lot to prove, I would think, for this group.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, you look at the history of the game, the Canadian women rolled off, 10 world championships in something like 11 years. 2005 was the first that the United States won. Canada was this indomitable force. They were the powerhouse. United States measured themselves. And then I would say around, 2010, after the 2010 Olympics, things started to really change for the United States. I think there was a bitter pill for the U.S., and they really changed the development of the game, and they started developing some really great programs. And, they've won 9 of the last 11, 8 of the last 9, 5 in a row. They have been dominant. The only thing I would say about that is that if you look at all the games, including the Olympics, you guys, look at all the scores. There hasn't been a whitewash. There hasn't been a 7-2 or, in the medal round games. They generally go to 1-goal games. They generally go to overtime. Or as we saw in 2018 in Pyeongchang, they go to a shootout. So as good as the United States has been, they have been better finishers, certainly in the last little while. Canada has to find a way to get on this revenge train, I guess I call it, and try to find a way past them. Do I think the United States is a better hockey team? I think for sure over the last 5 years. I think Canada has been actually the underdog in terms of, in terms of their roster, in terms of the play, the way they play. Canadian team has really played with a lot of heart, as every Canadian team does. But the American skill and will really over the last decade has been, and you just have to look at the record books. That's no lie. They've been better. And this Canadian team, every time we go to the Worlds, you guys, we talk about the same theme, and we talked about it. How do you bounce back against Team USA? Now, last time Canada didn't even get a chance to bounce back against USA because they didn't make it to the final. I do think that will happen here. I do think it will be a Canada-United States final again. And I just think it might be a little bit different on home ice. Let's hope that there are fans in the stands. But here's the other one. I'm not going to bet my house, but I'll bet maybe my garage or my shed. Oh no, I'll bet my backyard barbecue that it'll be a close game. They just play close hockey. They're great friends. They play with each other in college. They play with each other in what used to be the pro leagues. They've grown up. They put on a maple leaf and they put on the stars and stripes, and you put a puck on the ice, and they get at it. And they don't like each other very much. And that's the beauty of this rivalry. It truly is one of the best rivalries in sports.
You mentioned Finland beating Canada in 2019, and they almost upset the Americans in the final. Where is the rest of the world catching up to the Canada, U.S. and now Finnish tier? Like, are other nations catching up?
Yeah, I do think they are. But here's the other problem: is for the rest of the world is that as all the nations are catching up, they're getting better. Truly are. Finland is, by the way, is a legitimate contender. They're just, in my mind, just a step behind still, and it has a lot to do with numbers. I mean, in Canada, we have more girls finally playing the game than we've ever had before. United States, too. We still live in a crazy time, you guys, where, unfortunately, female athletics aren't treated in some countries the way they are treated in North America. That has to change. We're seeing a change in Russia. Russia I saw them yesterday. They seem to be getting better and younger. And Japan is here. This Japanese team is really good. They're skilled, but they're still not at the level of the powerhouses. Finland is the closest. Sweden used to be very close, but they've fallen completely off the global map. And they've got relegated. They're not even here this year. But there's teams like Hungary. We haven't seen them before at the highest level. Czech Republic's here. Germany's getting better. Switzerland. Yeah, they are all getting better, but that has also told the United States and Canada to also get better. And as the level of play is certainly increased, but I would still say there is a bit of a chasm between, it used to be 1, 2, and the rest. I would say it's now 1, 2, 3, and the rest.
Last one on this for me. I just wanted to ask your thoughts. There's 8 players that did not, or that don't have major international experience at the Worlds or the Olympics. Is there somebody that fans should look out for from a Canadian perspective at this tournament?
Yeah, Graham, I think there are a number of them, and I'm really getting my first look. I've been watching them on tape or seeing them. Again, some of us haven't even heard of them or talked about them the last year. They haven't had a chance to play. And probably the name that you're going to hear a lot about in the next little while is Sarah Fillier. She wears number 10 for Canada. She, for a long time, she's been on the radar. Commit to Princeton, was a leader in Princeton. And as much as the NCAA did play over this last year, the Ivy League did not play. And so if Sarah Fillier never had a chance to play. Now she's on this team right now. She's been training with Natalie Spooner and others in the Toronto area. She's a gifted player. I have a feeling, it's not a bold prediction, I don't think, that we're going to be talking about Sarah Fillier in the next 10 years the same way we've been talking about Marie-Philippe Poulin. She has that skill set. Now, might it not happen? Sure. But I do think there's something you can see it just in her eyes. She passes that eye test. You go, wow, it's that wow factor. She has the wow factor. Emma Malte is another one. She played great last night. She is like the Energizer Bunny, flies all over the ice. We're going to hear about her. Some of the new defensemen like Ashton Bell and Ella Shelton. Again, we haven't heard of some of these players before that are here. Claire Thompson. You're going to hear about Kristen O'Neill, the goalie Kristen Campbell. Again, these are names that don't roll off the tongue like a Natalie Spooner or Rebecca Johnston or Marie-Philippe Poulin or Melody Daou. Some of the ones that we all know. But trust me, they have to start somewhere, and they're starting here. I love what Hockey Canada, Team Canada has finally done. You never saw this happen before Worlds. You never saw this injection of youth. But I do think that's probably residue from the pandemic in the fact that, there were some players that just couldn't play anymore and they were getting older and they've decided to retire. This is the youngest, freshest Team Canada team. Will it translate to a gold medal? We'll see. But I'll tell you, the experience for these players and this Sarah Fillier is going to be immeasurable down the road. And by the way, we're going to hear a lot about these kids and their kids 5 months down the road in Beijing at the Olympics.
Last one for you, Rod, just on CFL. I have to ask you how it was calling football again the last couple of weeks. I know hockey's going to take precedence here for the next couple of weeks for you, but how was that? And also, what have you seen the first couple of weeks around the league?
Well, I'm sure the same thing that you have, AJ. I mean, I was like a kid on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, and I guess maybe Easter might pertain in a religious sense because there was a rise, and it was so good to see the game back. I mean, it's hard not to get emotional. We're only announcers, but I was pleasantly surprised in the first week. I thought the play would be a little sloppier. I think the defenses have ruled for sure. I still think teams are getting some rhythm. Remember, this is again all new to us. Normally, we'd be watching games, you guys, and after 2 games, they'd be preseason games, and we say, okay, everybody's ready. Well, 2 games in, and there are teams that I still think aren't quite ready, and we've seen a lot of quarterback turnover. I don't think we're seeing the best of anybody yet, although, Zach Collaros is doing great things in Winnipeg. Saskatchewan's off to a great start. Everybody else is kind of ho-hum. I think in Alberta, they're not pressing the panic button, but who would have thought that the Calgary Stampeders would be 0-2? Who would have thought Bo Levi Mitchell would have been injured? Who would have thought Edmonton would be 0-2? A lot of great storylines. Best thing is we're talking CFL, and we're watching CFL, and I do think week in and week out. The funniest thing is, when does the CFL season start, guys? We always say it every year. It doesn't matter what year it is, except for last year, which there wasn't a year. When does the CFL begin?
Is it June yet?
Labor Day.
Okay, yeah.
Labor Day. And I really do think that Labor Day is when we're going to finally start seeing some rhythm in this shortened season. And we're going to start to see teams. One thing I do know, you better not get off to an 0-3 or a 1-4 because that could bury you for a long time. The season's so short right now, and you do not want to get behind in where you're chasing. So I think the teams that got off to the 2-0 start are certainly, have an advantage right now. But we'll see. Week in and week out, it's typical Canadian Football League. And boys, I'm sure I echo your sentiments. I'm just glad it's back. I'm just glad anything's back.
Absolutely, yeah. Will be great. I'll be in Regina this weekend, and just to experience a game. I've been fortunate enough.
AJ, with fans, it's crazy.
I know.
I did that game in Winnipeg when I did it, and I looked down at the monitor, and it was almost like watching a TSN or ESPN Classic game. And you go, "Oh my God, when was this game? Oh wait, we're here, we're live." Maskless, together, vaccinated, right? Vaccinated, and that's the way we're going to have to live and operate in pro sports, in any sport moving forward.
Yeah, just so great with fans, though. Having called numerous games and numerous sports in the bubble, in soccer and football and hockey, I didn't have to call any with no fans in football. I can't even express how important it is just to have the fans back, how important they are.
Oh, my gosh. I was sitting there with Glenn Suter and I did the opening night game, and I remember we got there, you get there earlier. The only thing is you can't get down, and I really miss that. I mean, there's nothing like pregame in any sport, getting down to the field or the ice or the diamond. But then, I'm watching, and then we have the drone shots, and I'm watching the lineups outside as they were checking people for their documentation for vaccinations to be able to get into the building. And, and we've lived in our own little bubble, really, our life bubble for the last 18, 19 months. And as the people were filing in, it seemed kind of weird for a minute. And then it just seems so normal again. And I think that's hopefully where we're going. Sports isn't the same without fans. We saw it at the Olympic Games. I loved watching the Olympics, as you guys did. I love watching all the great performances. But, not having fans there just wasn't the same. And as bad as we felt watching it, imagine what it was like for Andre DeGrasse or Damian Warner or the women's soccer team, or Maggie McNeil or whoever. All of those athletes were kind of robbed of that opportunity, but at least they did get a chance to compete.
Rod, always great stuff. Really appreciate the time here today. Can't wait for your coverage and TSN's the next couple of weeks from Calgary, and can't wait to bump into you shortly in a CFL press box as well. You got it. Maybe hopefully we can have a social distance meal with our buddy Dwayne Ford in the next few weeks. Boys, always a pleasure talking to you. Hope you guys have a great couple of days, and enjoy the World Hockey Championships. I think you're going to
you're going to see some real good drama and excitement here. So thanks again for having me on.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Rod. Rod Black joining us on the Gabriel Pizza Hotline. Gabriel Pizza, the bigger, better pizza. Order online at GabrielPizza.com. Yeah, I'm excited for this tournament. Should be really good. I mean, it's been a long, when I looked that up and I saw
8:59.
Holy cow, 859. I thought it was a long time between Red Blacks games. It's certainly been a long time between OHL games, but 859 days is a long time, and these athletes, a lot to prove, right, for Canada, and we'll see what they can do here, and the fact that, this is going to be a tune-up. Hey, it's a World Championship. World Championship means a lot, but gold medal is still kind of the holy grail, right? So it's a nice little tune-up getting set for the Olympics, which isn't far away. We still don't know. I mean, supposed to know by the end of the month, right? It's August 19th. They got less than 2 weeks. See if the men are going. Really hope they're going. I mean, I'm all for, I watched a lot of hockey in the last Olympics, and it's a great story for Germany to get to the gold medal game, and that country was energized by it. They didn't care if it was NHL players or not, but we want to see best on best. Be fantastic. I mean, it's been too long, right? We want to see McDavid play with Crosby, right?
That's exactly it. There's so many guys that they have a window of maybe 2 Olympics where they're in their prime, and then that's that. Look at Stamkos. He's never been able to, with not going in the last one and in 2018 and not and being injured in 14. So yeah, you said it, McDavid Crosby.
We need to see it once, I hope. All right, back with more in a moment. Kadre Gray is going to join us at 5:05. Talk a little Blackjacks basketball. They've got a big playoff game tomorrow night, semifinals of the CEBL championship weekend from Edmonton. We'll carry it live for you. 9:30 start tomorrow, right here on TSN 1200. It's The Drive on TSN 1200. AJ Jakubek, Graham Creech, and Kenny Walls. Couple of texts here at 1200. Standard messaging rates apply. One says, how does women's athletics in Sweden stack up in other sports? Hard to imagine them, of all countries, being relegated. Yeah, I mean, everything's cyclical, right? So I think Sweden's one of those countries that certainly they're strong in a majority of sports when it comes to women's sports. Pretty good in men's sports, too. When you look at hockey and soccer and some of the other major sports, they produce some really good tennis and golf players. So, or golfers and tennis players. But, yeah, it's cyclical, right? Sometimes you have kind of a golden generation. I mean, you look at Canada right now in a lot of different sports. Let's just look at men's soccer and men's basketball. We have a bit of a golden generation, and sometimes you get a group of players, and it happens in all different sports, where you have a bit of a dry spell. And, I'm a big believer in kind of the theory of osmosis in sports. If you've got even one really good player and you surround him with other players, well, they're just naturally going to get better. And if you bring in 2 really good players, 3 really good players, all of a sudden everyone else is just naturally going to get better because they're practicing with them every day. Or, maybe they're just practicing with them, a few weeks a year if it's a national team. But you can't help but raise your game just to kind of reach their level or come close to reaching their level. So that's why you see certain quote-unquote golden generations, and then you see certain teams or certain countries go on a bit of a decline at times, but a lot of times it's just cyclical. So, yeah, I wouldn't really read too much into Sweden struggling right now in women's hockey, because I feel like, in terms of women's sports, they They invest in their female athletes, which is certainly great to see. I would not expect Sweden to continue to struggle when it comes to women's hockey. But in the here and now, they've taken a big hit. I'm curious to see how Finland does in this tournament, Graham, because, my goodness, they punch above their weight in hockey, don't they? It's incredible for a country of 5 million people. Like, they're right there. Like, you talk about a best on best in men's hockey and how excited we are about potentially seeing the best go and play in the Olympics in February. I mean, a team like Finland, they're a legit gold medal contender. It's not about just getting there and maybe winning a bronze, which I think was always kind of the feeling in the past. Hey, if Finland goes and wins a bronze, that's a big deal. Well, now, guess what? They can go and win it. And on the women's side, hey, they were legit. They ended up beating Canada. They lost in the gold medal game, but incredible what they're doing in Finland in hockey, men and women, with a country of 5 million people.
Last night, I know it was an exhibition tune-up, but it was a 2-1 game with a chance to tie with a 6-on-3 because of 2 penalties and the empty net. And then Canada scored 2 empty net goals, and they almost completed their run in 2019 with almost upsetting the Americans. So I would put them right there for sure.
All starts tomorrow, and we'll have it for you right here on TSN 1200 as we wrap up hour 2 of the drive. Tango asks if I'm calling the Blackjacks playoff game. I am not. Just call the home games. But it will be on TSN 1200. We'll carry the feed of the CBC broadcast. So look forward to that. I'll be watching that tomorrow night from Regina. It's a 9:30 start Eastern Time here on TSN 1200. All right. When we come back, we'll start to play some audio from Red Blacks practice. I know Steve Bunda was down there today, and the likes of Paul LaPolice and Matt Nichols spoke, so we'll get into their pregame comments as they get set for Saskatchewan in the next hour, starting in our next segment as we continue with the drive on TSN 1200.